Hello everyone, it's me, Aaron, and welcome back to the 31 Days of Thorgiween. And remember, all month long we're going to be reviewing spooky, scary movies and games and shows, and this week is Icon Week. So every single movie that we're talking about this week is going to feature some of the biggest, most famous horror movie monsters of all time. And today, we're talking about Pumpkinhead. You know, Pumpkinhead, really big, creepy guy. Got a long tail. Totally does not look like a ripoff of a xenomorph. Okay, fine, listen. As I said, all week long, we're talking about some of the biggest names when it comes to horror movie monsters. And Pumpkinhead might not exactly be a household name. However, he is a fan favorite. He is one of those monsters that fans really connected with and always pointed at and said, I want to see that character return. People always wish that he had taken off when he only got 2 films. But as I said, those 2 films kind of became cult classics, and fans have held on to this character. You don't even have to look that far to find evidence of that. He's been turned into action figures, been put into fan-made video games, and Dynamite Comics recently signed a deal to bring him back to life in their books. So yeah, even if he is not one of the biggest names out there, he's a name that people loved. But is he worth all this attention, or was he destined for obscurity? Let's find out today with our review of Pumpkinhead. This movie is about a good old southern man named Ed Harley, who lives alone with his son Billy. Now Billy is his whole world. He's just the sweetest boy you've ever met. He's like the original version of that kid from Jerry Maguire. For a man who has lost so much in his life, Ed still finds comfort in knowing that his son is going to be dead. I'm sorry, I didn't mean to jump ahead there and spoil that total surprise that I'm sure none of you saw. And forget I said anything, he could totally be okay. So one day, some rowdy young teenagers show up, and they do what all rowdy young teenagers do in horror films. Act like complete jackasses. They even brought along their dirt bikes and decided to tear up the back of Ed's shop while he's gone, only for one of them to run over his son. Told ya. Oh no! Billy! Who could have seen this coming? So when Ed gets back, he remembers stories he heard as a kid of a monster who would take revenge for those who had been wronged. He goes up to see an old witch living in the mountains, and she summons up a demon of vengeance who hunts down those who wronged the one that summoned him. This demon is known as Pumpkinhead, which, okay, isn't the scariest name. Plus, they call him that because he's buried in a pumpkin patch, but seems like a waste to have to explain his origin each time that you introduce him. That would be like if you named Jason Camp Crystal Lake Man. Now here's where this film starts to get really good for me. Yes, these kids are really obnoxious, and the death of the son was telegraphed a mile away, but now that the monster is actually summoned, this film starts to show why people enjoyed it. First off, yes, the monster himself does look heavily inspired by a xenomorph from the film Alien, but for killer monsters from the 80s, that was actually pretty impressive. Normally the killers were just some guy with a knife. Here, it's an actual practical effects monster, and they don't shy away from showing him. And for effects at that time, yeah, he looks pretty darn good. And even if he didn't, the witch who summoned him is all the monster you need. She's creepy, cryptic, and a total mystery that makes you want to know her backstory. Where's her movie? Also, you don't know much about the backstory of Pumpkinhead, but what you do know adds that perfect level of mystery. Why is there a pumpkin patch in a graveyard? Why is he buried in that pumpkin patch? You don't know, but it's mysterious and that works for me. Plus, he's a demon, like an actual biblical old school demon. That's actually kind of rare in horror films. And honestly, I always hate that horror films make their young protagonists total jerks, so that way you don't feel bad if they get killed. I've always said that takes the tension out of the film, and also takes the relatability out of it. When you watch teenagers acting like complete jerks, and then the film just treats it like, that's the way it is, it makes you look at them like, no, that's not the way it is, they're just being tools. But in this one, yeah, they're total jerks, and then they actually do something horrible because they're such jerks. Their actions actually had consequences in this film. And then you actually see them freaking out over this. They actually behave in a very realistic way about this. They can't believe they just did it. They feel bad about it, but at the same time, they're worried about what will happen to them. In other words, they act like humans. It actually makes them feel kind of real. But as I said, what they did was indeed horrible. So horrible, you understand Ed Harley. You understand why he would go and do what he did. Why he would be driven to the point where he would actually summon a demon for revenge. But there's a twist to this demon. Not only does it hunt down who Ed Harley wants to kill, it lets him see it happen. He feels it like he's the one doing it. He even feels Pumpkinhead's pain when he gets attacked. And when he actually experiences all this through Pumpkinhead's eyes, he realizes that he did something wrong, that revenge isn't the way. But you can't call Pumpkinhead off once he's been summoned until he's finished the job. And that's what I enjoyed the most about this film. Both Ed Harley and the victims feel very human. They make terrible mistakes, but they feel bad about that mistake and wish that they could take it back. These are actually some of the most human characters I've seen in a horror film, and because of that, it makes Pumpkinhead feel much more intimidating. When the guy who wants to summon him feels sorry and wants to call him off, and even that doesn't stop it, it makes you think, well, what can stop it? And the entire movie has a great tone and feeling to it. With the mysticism, the mystery, and the buttload of fog lights, this feels less like a slasher film and more like a southern fantasy film. Like this actually feels like some old wives' tale that would be passed down from generation to generation in the Appalachian Mountains. A very unique tone for the monster films of this time to take. So that's Pumpkinhead. Was it an amazing classic that many people missed out on? Or was it just another monster movie that kind of was destined for obscurity? Honestly, I kind of come down on the former on this one. Yes, the film does have some problems, but it's also very unique in many ways that rise it above the problems that other horror movies have. And even though, yes, you can't help but say Pumpkinhead does look like a ripoff of another horror movie monster, he still has his own unique, defined style to him. There is something very different about him. And he also has a huge air of mystery to him, and in a time when other horror movies were over-explaining their villains to death, yeah, that was actually pretty refreshing, and it really made me want to kind of learn more about him. Which I fully understand would then destroy the air of mystery about him, but hey, that's the problem with horror movie monsters. But I still really dug this film, so I'm going to give it an 8 out of 10. Thanks for watching today's video, everyone. If you like this video, then make sure to hit that subscribe button and follow us on Twitter at Professor Thorgy. And remember that we are doing videos like this every single day this month, so make sure to come back tomorrow for another spooky review. Thanks for tuning in, everyone, and happy Halloween.